Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. So I'm coming to you from my new recording studio, one of the many changes coming up. How exciting. The next couple months are going to be really exciting, and this is the first of many things. So, life is funny, isn't it? Funny, not funny. Life likes to throw monkey wrenches at you. Or at least at me. I don't know about you. How do you cope when that happens? How do you pivot? I think pivot is a good word. I feel a lot of the time like I'm in a mud puddle sometimes. I use that analogy a lot where I feel like I'm just stuck in a mud puddle. Things feel dark, dirty, heavy, hard to shake off. I've had a lot of this throughout my life. I've had lots of trials and sudden changes and big life changes. I feel like just when I think things are cruising along, bam, mud puddle. I've had things like health issues, medical issues, my accident, my son's mental illness, my other son coming out as gay to me, my dad dying, that was rough, sudden divorce, fractured friendships. Life is very unpredictable, certainly, and I know I'm not the only one going through these life monkey wrenches and mud puddles. I know I'm not. So I just thought we would talk about it today because I do know that many of us are going through things, and a lot of us don't even know somebody else is going through a problem. Like you might look at somebody and think, oh, everything's going great for them. You might not realize that they're in a mud puddle. And we need to be just like really conscious of that. We want to be aware of people who might be struggling. And I just thought this might be a good episode to talk about these things. So I've been called lots of names, but some good, some not so good. Some of the words used, especially I would say by my parents, would be that I'm strong and determined and persistent and resilient. And I do believe that I have those personality traits due to a lot of these issues I've been through. Those have been some of the things that I gleaned from a lot of those uncertain and unpredictable things I've had in my life. But I'm also very tired and very human and very muddy at this point. Sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe things are cruising along great now. And then, a monkey wrench comes, mud puddle comes along. Lately, it just feels like puddle after puddle, and it's draining on me. And I know that other people are also having struggles, and it's probably a drain on them too. And it can be really hard to stay positive through a lot of these trials and traumas and to get back up after being knocked down and let down just repeatedly. It's really hard to trust people, to trust situations, and it's hard to know what to do. What do we do about this? What do we do about these things that come up? And my mom always has said, when life gives you lemons, turn the lemons into lemonade. I love that saying because life is full of lemons, or mud puddles. So I do think that that's a good attitude to have, but it is a challenge. So when I was preparing for this, I was thinking, when these things come up, how can we discern whether something is coming from God or if something is coming from Satan? Now, that shouldn't be hard to figure out, but I find this hard sometimes. I don't know if you do, but I do. So if you think about things like when an event happens, when something happens and it throws you off and your life suddenly takes a very unexpected shift, is it that Satan is trying to break your spirit and he's trying to hurt and harm you and eliminate you? I've talked about in past episodes in my accident, I felt like Satan was trying to eliminate me from the planet because I was a fresh Christian at the time, and I think he was trying to wipe me out, and it didn't work, and I came back bigger and stronger, and, I've had other things happen where I think, is this Satan just trying to knock me off a pedestal? Is this Satan trying to just ruin my life? Is it something I should not go along with and just fight it tooth and nail because I'm not going to let Satan win? But I'm just a human. I can't fight Satan on my own. I have to have, Christ with me. I have to have Christ's shield around me. I need God to save me from Satan. But sometimes I wonder, is this situation God trying to give me challenges and trying to not throw a monkey wrench, not try to, do something to hurt or harm me, certainly, but is he giving me these challenges so that it will bring me closer to holiness, which is our goal, is to become closer to Christ, to become stronger in our holiness? Is that what's happening in these situations? Jesus tells us we will have to carry our cross every day. And if you are a person that is very devoted to Christ, if you really want to be in good standing with him, you will have to carry your cross every day. And that is so true. I'm all for that if I know it's for the good of the kingdom, if I know it's good for my path to holiness, if I know it's going to draw me closer to Christ. I'm all for doing whatever I can do with that. I'm not for catering to Satan and his tricks and his traps. But I do know people struggle a lot when they'll say, well, I'm in this trial, I'm in this trauma, where is God? He's very quiet. I'm praying, where is he? He's silent. He's not with me right now. At least that's how people feel. I know my husband and I have said that numerous times, where we pray and pray and pray for certain things, and we just say, where is he? It's so quiet. We never doubt his love for us. We never doubt that he's with us. But I know that there's people out there that are really struggling with this. It's like, why does God let bad things happen? I'm sure we've all had that feeling when something really horrible happens in our life and we say, why, God, why? That's a very natural response, when something bad happens and you are a believer in the Lord and you are praying very hard and you're wondering, why is this happening? When I'm a good person, I'm trying so hard and these things are happening now or continually. Where are you? I'm not him, so I can't answer for him. But I would think it started with the fall of Adam and Eve. Everything was perfect until that, and that has a factor. God gives us free will. We make bad choices and decisions sometimes, and they lead to a bad choice and decision that could be something that really messes up your life. And it's not necessarily God's fault that you've chosen a bad path to walk down or a bad choice and decision to make. He's allowing it to happen, and you're going to suffer the consequence. And he really wants you to not do that. So sometimes that's why I wouldn't say he's letting bad things happen. He's letting you have your free will, and you are mucking it up yourself. Also, sometimes bad things happen because ultimately whatever has happened is going to cause a greater good. And so this is something I've thought a lot about recently. I feel like there's been a lot of homilies about this, and I think it's something that I think is a really valuable thing to think about. In my life, a few things that come to mind is, for example, when we found out my son had a mental illness. That, of course, is devastating news to a family. And the greater good was that my children, as my other children especially, and their dad and I, really became more aware of how we can all be more loving and kind. So I feel like that was a greater good that we would have never had we not been presented with this situation. My dad dying of cancer caused cancer awareness in our family. And now, we can help other people due to that experience. My accident, that enabled us to move back to the area with my family. We probably wouldn't have done that. And I feel like that was a greater good for my children to be raised around my parents and to be raised in the area where I was raised in. I felt that was a greater good. When my 25-year marriage ended, which I was not expecting, the greater good that came out of it was that I became Catholic. I would have never become Catholic had it not been for him leaving. So all those things to me, when I wrap my mind around them in that way, that helps me to look at the positive side of things. I know that there's even people where they've lost their child, which would be absolutely devastating to lose your child to an illness or an accident or something. And they will donate the child's organs to save another child or another person. That's the greater good. So yes, they lost their child and that's devastating, but it's something that brings out a greater good. So I would say that when something bad happens, it's not always from Satan. It could be from God, but he's trying to give us challenges that will bring us closer to holiness. So how long do you keep going if you're in a bad situation? How long do you stay in the bad situation? How do you know when it's time to switch gears? I personally prolong things in a bad way. I will take far too long to come around and realize something was over a long time ago. And I found out the other day I get that from my mother. She admittedly said she does the same thing. So I thought, oh, okay, that's where it comes from. I think we try to stick things out. I think we try to not throw in the towel too soon. I stayed in my first marriage far too long, and I should have thrown in the towel way before that. And I learned a lesson from that. But obviously not a good enough lesson because I've done that same thing repeatedly where I've stayed in something far too long and it's just turned into a bigger mud puddle. That's something I need to work on. Sometimes God has to really throw something at you to get you to break away from a bad situation or a person. At least this has been my experience and my story, where I will put up with something for a very, very long time. And I guess it could be stated, the last straw or the straw that broke the camel's back. But God will finally just, in my mind, just lays down the law. I feel like he's saying to me, Lori, you're taking too long. I'm now going to throw this last thing at you and it's it. It's done. And I just have to go along with that. And I recognize it when that happens. I go, oh, here it is. This is the last thing. And then I really surrender to God's will. And I even kind of learned to do that, not as well before I became Catholic, but certainly better now. So how can you pivot successfully when you finally realize that you need to get out of a situation or break away from a bad situation or person? How do you pivot successfully? Because when things are thrown your way, you can duck and cover, you can pivot, you're going to have to do something. You don't want to crawl into a corner and suck your thumb. You have to face it and, I believe, pivot. So how do you pivot successfully? Well, I think you should pray, and you should pray for strength. Pray that the Lord will take the weight off of you. Pray for clarity. Whatever God wants is the right thing. But when you pray for clarity and you ask God to show you something and he shows you, then you need to do it And you need to mean it when you're praying for something, like don't ask for something and then he's giving you a definite path and you're resisting it. Before I became Catholic, I really, when I would have these issues, these traumas and these trials, I didn't really turn to God. I mean, maybe there was the occasional, please God help me, but I just didn't rely on God. I didn't pray to him and think that he would come in and make everything better. I used to just kind of Wonder Woman through everything. I would just barge right through it. I would just handle it. I would handle it on my own. I would, be this force. I'm not saying that worked well. I'm just telling you that's what I used to do. And the difference now when I go through these things where my life all of a sudden takes a turn, takes a shift, I lose someone, lose something, there's a major life change. Now what I do is rely solely on God.
We'll be right back.
Rising anti-Semitism. New generations redefining how they connect with Jewish traditions. Changing dynamics among Jews around the globe. Take a deep dive into these topics and more on Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, the podcast brought to you by the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County. Hear from the thought leaders, politicians, scholars, and artists at the forefront of Jewish life today. Subscribe to Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, wherever you listen to podcasts.
I look straight at Jesus for help. I'm so much more peaceful and calm when things come my way now because I can't handle it on my own. I can't do it. I'm too tired. I'm too worn down. And I pray, please take this off of me, Lord. Please take this from me. Please help me. It can be a very simple prayer. Help me, Jesus. Help me. Please take this off of me. He also says that to us, that he will take on our burdens. We need to ask him to do that. And now, especially recently, there's been some major life changes that I certainly wasn't expecting. And for whatever reason, well, I know the reason is God and my surrender to him, my trust in him, my giving myself and my problems over to him, who's the only one that can fix it. That has been a big life changer for me. And like I always say, we're a work in progress, right? So this is something I probably should have been thinking and feeling before, but it's okay. I'm thinking and feeling it now. And I just feel like this is something I wanted to talk to you about because I do feel like a lot of our world is out of control. A lot of our lives are out of control. The only way to get them back in control and to quiet the chaos, to quiet the monkey wrenches that are being thrown at us, these mud puddles and these lemons, to turn completely to the Lord and ask him to help you. That's the only answer. We absolutely must surrender to God's will. When something happens, like I say, try not to panic. Try not to look at it in a way of God's missing from what's happening. Try to look at it as, where is God in this? Why is this happening? What could be the greater good of why this is happening? Let me look for that. Let me find the clarity in that. Lord, please help me find the clarity in why this devastating event is happening. What's the reason? I know you love me. I know you want the best for me. What's the reason of this? He might not answer you. You might figure it out later, like I've done, where you look back and you go, oh, that's why that happened. Like they say, hindsight is 20/20. Isn't that the truth? So try to just trust in him and trust in his will. A couple of things that I always think about a visual. I'm a very visual person. I always give this visual to people. Picture yourself in an inner tube. You're going down the river and your legs are hanging down and you're bumping into everything on the way down the river. If you would put your bottom in the inner tube, put your arms and legs out and just float down the river with the Lord, He's going to send you to the right spot. Don't bump your legs into all the rocks underneath the water. That's one of my favorite things. You got to go with God's flow. Instead of going with the flow, go with God's flow. Another one I always laugh about is I feel like God is always trying to show us the right way to go, the correct thing to do. And like I always say, we humans muck it up. But it reminds me of when you get in the car and you say to Siri, how do I get to Vaughn's? And she tells you how to get there. Turn left at this place and you turn right. And then basically, I don't know about your Siri, but mine's British. And she always sounds very perturbed with me like, you idiot. I told you to turn right, but you turn left. So I think God doesn't call us an idiot, but I think sometimes He's like making the path for us and then we do the wrong thing or we take too long to make a decision, like I said earlier. And He's going, I don't want you in this situation. And all of a sudden, He throws a tack strip down so that you either stop in your tracks or He'll lock a door so you can't go through it. So let's be more aware and open to God's signs for us and surrender to His will because His way is the best way. So how do you bounce back after a setback and not let it level you? When life shifts, when you lose a job, when you lose a spouse, when you lose a partner, or a friendship breaks apart, you have to rally and bounce back. Because if it is from Satan, you definitely want to bounce back and show him that God is in charge, not Satan. And I feel like the only way you can bounce back is to lean on the Lord, is to listen to what He's trying to tell you to do, to stay calm, to stay focused on Him, block out the noise, block out the chaos, and try to find the path He's setting you on. In our worst moments, we feel rudderless. We're aimless. But God is the answer. He's the answer. He will carry us. He will bring calm and peace to our heart if we allow Him to. If we surrender to His will, He will get us through everything we're going through if we allow Him to. We just have to open up our hearts and minds to what He has planned for us and know that He loves us more than anybody in the world. He will never let us down. There's always a reason for everything He does, and we have to trust Him. One thing that's hard to do, but you should try to do, is stay positive, even when you don't feel positive. There's always something positive to look for and find. Even in your darkest moment, you can make a list, either written down on paper or in your head, of all your gifts and blessings. Sometimes when I have really bad things happening, I'll go for a walk and I won't look at my phone. I won't look down. I won't stop and talk to people. I will look around me and thank God for all the gifts He's presenting to me. I will find a butterfly, a rabbit, a beautiful sunset, just a cool breeze, anything where I feel so grateful. In some of my darkest moments, I know that I can still find happiness, joy, and goodness that God is providing for me all around me. And that helps me to remember that things are going to get better and things aren't going to stay in the mud puddle. It's good to pray. You don't just sit in a corner when you're praying for things, praying and waiting for a miracle to happen. You need to be open to the signs that God's trying to show you. Get up, be proactive. Maybe He's trying to show you that He wants you to do something different, something that you never thought you would do. When you go to pivot, sometimes it's not even the thing you thought you were supposed to do in your life, but God is saying, this door's closed, I'm opening this other door, pivot over here, and you have a whole new life ahead of you, a whole new world ahead of you that I want you to experience. So go down that path. Remember, anything that is positive and for your good is from God. Anything that's trying to hurt and harm you is from Satan. And don't forget, Satan wants you to stay face down in a mud puddle. But you know what you need to do? Get up and make mud pies instead. And now some fresh Catholic news. So I'm very excited to say that I got asked to do another speaking event in August. So I'm very excited, and I get to go to a faculty retreat at a Catholic school. So I will be talking about how to be a leader in the church. So I think that's very exciting, and I appreciate being asked. I, of course, would love to do more speaking events. So if you have an RCIA group starting up, I would love to come talk to them about my conversion and just about my podcast and how it might help them. Definitely, we have great episodes on there about the RCIA program and the misconceptions of the Catholic Church, amongst other topics. So those are things that perhaps the RCIA group would want to hear about. I would also love to go to schools or Bible studies or women's groups or men's groups. So reach out to me at freshcatholic.com if you would like me to come. Also, the month of August is going to be a big month for me. After this month of July, which was crazy hectic, I want to focus a lot on my Fresh Catholic quest and goals. So I look forward to sharing all those with you, like my Patreon, my YouTube channel, my blogs, my new series that's coming out, my virtual events, and hopefully my live events. So share with your friends, please. Review, rate, all those good things. I really appreciate you listening today, and I hope this helps you in some way. Thank you. Love you. Bye. Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh. Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded at Wonder Mouse Studios in Ventura, California.